This is the Office Memo, where we talk about podcasting for businesses. Branded podcasts, internal podcasts, and recruitment podcasts, but social business and digital transformation will be passing by. Everything you need to create a better engagement with your employees and generate a lasting connection with your customers and clients. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Office Memo. A while back, I had an interesting conversation with Sylvie Lui from SLVC Voice Training.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here today. So my name is Sylvie. I am an executive voice, accent, and communications coach, and I'm based in London, UK. But as you can hear from my accent, I'm not originally from London. I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, and I moved here about 6.5 years ago to study my master's in voice. And it is a very, very niche type of work that I do. So I help people with finding the confidence in their voices through developing different qualities that they're looking for to help them feel more authentically connected to the voice and in terms of how they are speaking, and kind of relating that into effective communication skills. So becoming a more effective communicator by working on voice and accent skills.
I asked Sylvie what kind of clients she usually gets.
Yes, so my business, SLVC Voice Training in London, is based in London, but since the pandemic, we've had a lot more clients that are also based internationally as well. What we do is that we offer 3 main services. One is voice training, vocal development. Another one is accent training. And the third stream is presentations and effective communication skills. But a lot of the time what happens is that when we have our inquiries from our prospective clients, a lot of the time it is actually a blended personalized program that they're looking for. So they may be looking for voice and communications training together, or they may be wanting accent training, but they need to know how to practically apply that into the communication skills at work. So the thing is that when you only work on one of these skills, it's very hard to apply them in the way that you need to, unless you're really thinking about it in a very practical manner, if that makes sense.
It is interesting to hear that it's all connected. Training your voice, accent training, presentation, and effective communications, and how to put all this into practice. As a podcaster, your voice is the most important element of bringing your point across in an effective manner. So, of course, I asked Sylvie in what way you can use your voice on a podcast to make an impact.
For podcasting, what's really important is that it's all based on audio. So it's based on people listening, oral skills, and also oral skills from your mouth as the person is recording. People learn in so many different ways. And to give you an example of this is that I'm more of a visual and kinesthetic learner rather than somebody who can listen and learn a lot better. And so when I think about the vocal skills that are required in order to be a good podcaster, it means that we have to be very clear in exactly what we are sharing. We have to be clear in our voice and also clear in the message in terms of what we are trying to share. And then when we look at our voice, it's really about a story, isn't it? Because we've been in a lot of different meetings and presentations in our life where we feel bored by the presenter. And a lot of the time is because the voice is not doing anything that is emotionally connected to how the person actually feels and how they are sharing it. So creating that type of connection with your voice to somebody who's listening to you, I think would be the biggest impact that that person could make.
By presenting ourselves and using our voice, we can capture the attention of the audience. Before recording, you need to check with yourself and feel your energy. That's why it's difficult to record when you're feeling down, depressed, or sick. Your energy needs to flow through your microphone to make the story enjoyable to listen to. But how do you stay true to yourself? How can you sound more authentic as a podcaster?
Well, the thing about feeling authentic is sometimes there's a lot of noise that happens in our head, which gives us all the nerves and pressures and stresses of thinking that we're not good enough. And a lot of the time when we have that type of mindset, it definitely infiltrates into how our body holds that tension and that stress, and then it directly affects how our voice comes out. So the problem with that is, how do we work on it? And a lot of it comes down to working on how to become more confident in yourself before you actually press record, because if we haven't worked on that and it's living inside our bodies, it for sure will start to reflect in our voices when we're making the recording. And also, if we don't feel like that we're 100% confident and intentional with what we mean to say, or we're not committed to what we're saying in that moment, then the impact of that message really goes away in the voice as we listen to someone.
As usual, it comes down to practice and preparation. You need to know your subject, feel confident about what you want to say. Recording a podcast takes practice. Don't expect it to go swimmingly from episode 1. You will improve, but you need to work on it. Talking about preparation, I asked Sylvie what kind of preparation she suggests podcasters do. Perhaps some voice exercises?
Well, I would say not even with voice exercises, because the thing is that would be a secondary approach to me, because vocal exercise is to help with the aesthetics of the sound, so the technical quality of your voice. But the most important thing is to ensure that you are 100% connected and emotionally connected to what you are sharing. So ensuring that it's less about thinking about trying to get it right, but really knowing and feeling why you are sharing this message. And if you don't have an answer that you can give to why I need to share this message, and it's more so a thought-based answer, that would be the first part of the homework that I would say would be the most important. Following that would be some exercises to open up your voice. So sometimes, especially in London, when we travel a lot through the tube and underground, we hardly ever speak to anybody unless you have flatmates that you're friends with when you wake up and you want to chat with somebody. But a lot of the time, we don't even practice using our voices until we make it all the way to where our workplace is. And at that point in time, our voices are not ready really to kind of be at its most optimal place for recording. So I would say that when you can practice speaking for a little while before you actually start recording, that would be the first thing to do.
Getting your story straight, feeling confident are the key preparations before starting recording. And like Sylvie mentioned, practice speaking before starting to record will loosen not only your voice up, but your body as well, and your mind is more focused on the content. Before you hit the recording button, first do a few trial runs to get into the moment. You will feel more relaxed and come across more confident. Some of us non-native speakers are creating a podcast in English to reach a wider audience. Sometimes we feel worried that our accents get in the way of telling the story, so I asked Sylvie how we can come across more clear and understandable.
The thing about people who don't speak English as a native language, there's really, really beautiful qualities in everyone's accents, but there becomes a problem when people don't understand you. And when we are trying to work on clarity, the things that I work on with my clients is through a program of accent training. And it consists of looking at consonants, it consists of looking at vowels, exactly how they are using the qualities in their speech in terms of different types of accents. Because even between American and British English accents, there's so many different qualities in terms of the general sense of how we use the accent itself. In some different types of accents, we speak a lot quicker, just like the way that I'm speaking now. But if I were speaking in a British accent, there is less of that quick pace in there because we have to use an intonation that goes a little bit more up and down that does not exist in an American accent. So when we start to look at things like that, that helps us for clarity, but also understanding that if you don't undertake accent training, some qualities that we can look at is how fast do I speak? Can I slow it down a little bit? But it's not really about slowing it down. It's really about understanding the movement, the mechanics of how we make our sounds, because when our tongues are moving too quickly and we feel like we're stumbling over our words, that's when we know that we're not understandable to a lot of different ears, whether that be in your own language, in your own accent, or in a different one. Another thing is that if we're not clear in our message and we're thinking about what we're trying to say as we're speaking it, likely we're not understanding ourselves in that moment. So it's going to be very hard for you to convince your listener that you are saying what you're saying and that you're meaning what you are saying and making that understandable, if that makes sense.
To speak as a native speaker does not necessarily mean you need to speak as fast as they do. Rather focus on the pronunciation than speed. Again, we come back to sharing the story with confidence. when your message is clear, it doesn't really matter if you have an accent. Your confidence will create an understandable narrative. Sylvie gave another great tip about how to prepare as a non-native speaking podcaster.
When you speak out loud to yourself, you're working your muscles to move in a different way than what your mother tongue might be, which is a different movement than what your body is very, very familiar to. We often don't think about even how we're moving our vocal anatomy and the muscles and the articulators that are there when we're speaking. But when we become more aware of that, that definitely helps us. And especially if we're switching between languages, being able to maybe speak in that language for about 30 seconds to a minute before you actually start to record as a podcaster, or even before you present in a meeting or in a presentation, that is what's going to help you to really feel the clarity in the movement. So that brings the clarity into your voice and into the intention of what you really mean to say, instead of stumbling or rushing through or feeling that your tongue is moving faster than what it's supposed to be doing in that moment. It takes a lot of practice, to be completely honest. It does take a lot of practice, a lot of time, a lot of reflection to really understand, and also checking into the responses and the reactions of who's listening to you to really see if it was clear enough for them, or if you need to then reiterate it in a different way, or perhaps just repeat it so that you know that they understand what you mean. In a lot of different languages that are more Mediterranean and Latin-based, so let's say Spanish, Italian, languages like that, because it flows so much easier in their own language, we take on that quality as we learn a new language. And so when we make English flow too quickly and too much, that is where basically the clarity starts to be lost, only because that English in general, in a native way that it's spoken, has more articulation and more breaks and is less flowy. But definitely really celebrating our own identities and where we come from, our accents and how we speak is so key, because otherwise we undermine our own confidence in the way that we come across as people, and especially when we open our mouths to share our messages.
One of the things podcasters struggle with are the ums and filler words. Why do we use them, and how can we prevent them?
For fillers, a lot of the time people use them because they're thinking as they are speaking, or sometimes they're not comfortable with the pause that happens. And so if we know exactly what we need to say, generally speaking, we can stop the fillers. The fillers often take away the impact of how we are speaking, and like exactly how I'm speaking now. But when I'm using my here, it's because I'm thinking in the moment. And when you signpost that you're thinking and speaking at the same time, it's more okay to use the However, when you have something that's more prepared and planned, that is where you want to ensure that you're more succinct and concise and knowing where you want to go. And that's kind of how you can avoid using more fillers there.
And what about high-pitched voices? What can we do about that?
When people speak in a high pitch and their natural voice does not exist there, that just means that there's extra body tension inside their bodies that needs to be released, and understanding basically the whole structure of what affects their voice, which is one from breathing all the way from holding different types of muscle tension to why our voices show up the way that they do. The more relaxed we are in our bodies, the voice will come out more relaxed and be a little bit more flowy.
I learned a lot from my conversation with Sylvie. I'm sure there are podcasters out there who can benefit from the services her company provides. So I asked Sylvie where people can reach her.
All right, so I have a website. It's called SLVC Voice Training in London, and the URL is voicetraininginlondon.co.uk. What you can do there is that you can book a consultation with me just so that we can get to know each other, see exactly what you need to work on, and I can give you some advice on how to get there and reach your goals effectively. Other than that, I also share a lot of different tips on LinkedIn, where I post a lot, as well as Instagram. On LinkedIn, my name is Sylvie Lui, MFAFRSA. And on Instagram, my handle is SLVC Voice Coach. You can also find me on Facebook as well. And there's a private group there that you can join for more free tips from a lot of the different consultants that I work with that span across leadership, cultural awareness, interviewing and careers, personal branding, and even introverted communications for confidence and corporate communications for confidence, alongside voice and accent training tips as well.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time. Bye. Many thanks for listening. We hope you liked the episode. If you want to start a podcast with our assistance, please feel free to contact us at info@lagerservices.com. Until next time.